talked about center fire guns, and I said I deal with Kelbley's a lot, and Jim Kelbley, he's not the old man now, but he's the son, and here's what we're finding out, and I agree with him. I believe this is happening. I can believe it. Where most times when a gun quits shooting, first thing we think is, I need to cut that barrel off and rechamber it, because the throat's what's going to eat away. They're forgetting all about the front end here. What we're finding today is that most guns are not shot out, will still shoot, but the crown is getting damaged. You know, and a lot of people clean like I do. I clean a lot. We got guys here at the range that don't clean their guns for a whole year. They take them home and they clean them and bring them back the next year. I have never been that way. But this gun has to be cleaned. I've just found that out here just when I did this the other day. That gun there, I can shoot that thing in a couple of matches, which is, say, 100 rounds, and I don't see that much of a problem. I have a 52C that I don't know that yet. Just got it working good. So I don't know how long I can shoot it before it needs to be cleaned. But in the past, 70s, when I was shooting, my gun, I only shot Ely 10X in it. And it got cleaned after about, did I tell you this before? About every 7th shot, you shoot 5 for score and whatever sighters you shoot, and then you shoot the next match. That gun got cleaned after every match, after every target. Okay, so if you shoot 5 times, that gun got cleaned 5 times that day between matches. To me, clean barrel shoots better than a dirty barrel. That's not always the case, but that's just the way I am about it. Some people are, and some people, oh, don't you clean that barrel. And sometimes they're right. Sometimes they clean the gun and the gun don't shoot for crap. First off, they need to get fouled just a little bit. Normally, I've got guns that I can shoot one time, like right there, one time, and I knew it was going high to begin with, and the rest of them went right in there. Other guns I might have to shoot 4 or 5 times, and it'll shoot. Same thing with center fire, right, Dave? Just depends on the guns. Every gun's different.
Bob, can you show them what a crown is?
Crown?
You have a piece of a barrel?
You know what it is? The end of the barrel. It's recessed.
Well, this is... If you guys want, before you leave, here's the, this is not the crown we're talking about here, this is the throat.
That's the throat.
You meant the throat? You meant the crown?
Just turn that around.
All right. You touched my crown. Anyway. Yeah, that very end of your rifling.
It's just a little chamfer right there where the bullet comes out, so it'll come out clean.
Yeah. Now this one here has not been. This is a cut. I was going to have one of my guns have recrown. Well, what they do, they just go in there. This is a target crown, but it's actually a straight across crown. All of your guns that you buy, all of your factory guns, they have an 11-degree. 99% of them have an 11-degree cut or bevel into the. Like I said, I was going to take, I don't think it was this gun here. I think I had him crown that barrel. That one right there, I did crown it. How to do it? I used, I ordered this little tool from Sinclair. And I have a little tube of grease. Not grease. 600 grit silicone lapping compound. And I put my barrel up like that there. And I think I said this before. And I held that thing on there for 10 seconds. and I did it again, 10 seconds. And when I shot it, I never did take it for him to crown it, because that took care of it right there. Put that little bevel on there, on the crown of the barrel, that smoothed it out. How can you find out if you got a bad crown? Sometimes you can't. It's a guesswork. If the gun ain't shooting, first thing I do is go ahead and get it recrowned. But a good way to check it might be to take a cotton ball or a cotton swab and run it right around the edge of the rifling there. And if you pick up any strand of that cotton ball, you got a problem. Okay. But sometimes you don't see it, you don't get it, you don't pick nothing up. I've had them, maybe that gun there, I never picked up nothing, but when I did it, it works good. And we said these are bushings for changing for tension on the necks. If you want to tighten up the neck, put the shell in there a little bit more, you go to a smaller one or whatever. Tension on the neck on your centerfire guns has a lot to do with accuracy. I normally didn't like very much tension on them, and that's probably why when I just seated that bullet down in there, you could do it by hand almost, but I usually put it in a seating die where it goes straight down. Same things that Virgil and them were doing in '74. Well, now sometimes, I talk about I don't like to touch my gun. I use free recoil, but that's not always the case. That's not always what you want. Hunting rifles. If you have a gun that you can get to stay level, you can center this and get your bag centered up, and you can keep this level. That's why we have a level up here to help too, and it'll stay there, and it'll come back to battery the same way. Where if you got nothing up here and a hunting rifle, and then you're just guessing that you've got it back in the same place every time. That's why if you want, and you got a gun that shoots pretty good, you want to just go ahead and make yourself a forearm rest to sit on something flat to help you shoot, fine. Or take it off when you go hunting. But hunting guns, I would recommend, and most people do anyway, is that you hold the gun. In other words, you touch the gun. The main thing is be consistent with whatever you do. If you hold it this way this time, try to do it exactly the same way every time. And you'd be surprised. It makes a big difference. It's like the guy said, the only way he could get that 22 PPC to shoot worse than 0.25 was to thumb it. Well, what he meant was, if he's shooting it and he puts his thumb up on his stock, and that would open up his groups to 250, from 0.25 to 250. It sounded bad, but for them that's bad, for what he was getting before. And all it was touching that gun. Right, Jeff?
Yep,
Keep your fingers off that gun, Jeff.
I do.
Okay.
I learned a valuable lesson when we were down at the Mid-State shooting. I tried the free hand at PPC, and it made a believer out of what a scope will do to your eye.
Mid-state.
Yeah, the last time the biggest problem you had was having your shoulder clear back here, so the gun recoiled back that far. I said, you don't have to go that far away, Like they said, you can go 1/1000th off of your shoulder. Well, he's just exaggerating.
An inch and a half.
He also said it didn't matter what primer they use, CCI, all the different powders. He said it didn't make any difference. I just agree with that. It does make a difference to me, and I believe that it does. So there's one that I disagree with. I disagree with the barrel length, except that when Virgil was interviewed, the guy at the end, he said, I did not change a word he said, I wrote it as he said it. Well, it would have been better if you knew something about guns. And when he said, doesn't matter how much the powder, as much as touching the lands with the bullet. I fine tune, once I get my gun at 200 yards and it's shooting me in a nice little circle, then I go to my seating depth and tune it a little bit. That's how I tune a centerfire. And some like it in the lands, some don't like it in the lands. Okay. All the shooting he was doing, he was just touching the lands because he's just pushing that bullet back when he signs it. But he said, it doesn't matter if you're 1 or 2 grains off as much as the seating depth. Okay. I read it and I read it. Finally I picked up on it. I know what the problem is. He didn't mean that. Believe me, he didn't mean that. Because they were smarter than that. They're as smart as we are. What he meant was 1/10 of a grain, and he was right. If he would have said 1/10, but the guy interviewing him should have said 1 or 2 grains, he would have changed it. He would have said, no, I mean 1 or 2 tenths. Because if you change 1 or 2 grains in a charge of case, you're making a big difference. You change a lot. So your groups are going to change. The fact that he said the seating depth meant more, he is right. I agree with that. So if they would have got that correct, which I'm sure he meant 1/10 of a grain, then I agree with him. So I'll say that I agree with him, but they wrote it up wrong. Well,
I got a question for you.
mm-hmm.
I really want to know that